Good afternoon, everyone. Wow, what an image, what words, and what musical song that gets all of our attention. Welcome this afternoon to executive panel that I promise you will be not only disruptively innovative, but also will be an awakening around where we are today. And so I wanted to just take a moment to say thank you for taking the time in your day to join us and taking your time today to just empty your space of thinking for what I call an engaging panel today. And what I'd like to do is start off by thanking all those who are participating in advance, but also bring on someone who I know can kick this panel off that really will help us understand what disruptive innovation is all about, but more importantly, how it intersects with racial reckoning. So if I could do this, introduce our opening speaker. And for me, I'm smiling because I happen to have the pleasure of breathing in the same space that she does. And from that, I got a little bit of her DNA in me. Our speaker today, to start off with, has more than 17 years in different roles at the media company called Diversity, Inc. You've heard of it because each year they put through a comprehensive strategy on defining not just who's best practicing diversity and inclusion, who's actually performing at that level. And with that in mind, Carolyn Johnson is the CEO and leader of Diversity, Inc. Diversity, Inc. is a data, consulting, and strategic advisory company. And most of you know them by what? Their top 50 each year training programs and best practices. But she's a prominent voice addressing large company culture to unlock authentic engagement and competitiveness to grow the bottom line in every company. Carolyn regularly advises Fortune 200 CEOs, their boards, and executive leadership teams. But she also takes the time to also connect with employees. Seeking to promote the welfare of others, Carolyn regularly advises Fortune 200 companies, not just the board of directors, but she's also a founding board member of the Rutgers Business School Center for Women in Business. And she is also on the national board of directors for INROADS. With that in mind, this year, the sought after, which I know she is by a lot of number of companies, the C-suite mentor, and she not only mentors a lot of C-suite leaders, she is the not only conscious thinker and not just words, but in her DNA is this focus around irreversible, sustainable change. And that is the secret ingredient to what she's challenged all of us to do, not just corporate America, but the community and also philanthropy. Without further ado, welcome Diversity, Inc.'s CEO, Carolyn Johnson.
Thank you so much, Forrest, for that awesome introduction. And good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Forrest and the team at INROADS, congratulations on 50 years. That's just outstanding and amazing, and I'm happy to be part of it alongside you as a board member. To my team at Diversity, Inc., you are the gold standard for a data, human capital consulting, and strategic advisory company. It is my honor to work with each of you, and thank you for your consistent level of excellence. Now, with the time we have together today, I have 3 objectives. First, I will share with you the power of disruption to create irreversible, sustainable change. Second, I will share with you why diversity, fairness, and equal access is more than a Black, Brown, and Latinx conversation. Third, I will share with you my hope for the future of gender equality and race relations. First, let's look at some specific examples. Whether it's Nike and their attempt to transform gender stereotypes, Tesla's powerful new forms of energy, or even Netflix and the rise of television streaming apps, there will always be an appetite for profitable disruption in the consumer world. And the C-suite is no different. Take, for example, Michael Dowling, Michael is president and CEO of Northwell Health and one of healthcare's most influential voices. He takes a stand on societal issues that many health system CEOs shy away from. For example, gun laws and their impact on communities, and racism being a health care crisis. With nearly 70,000 employees, annual revenues of $7.3 billion, and headquartered in New York, being New York's largest private employer, Northwell Health ranked #1 on Diversity Inc.'s 2020 Top Hospitals and Health Systems list. Northwell's diversity mentoring and development programs have a special focus on women, community health workers, and women in science. It also includes a diversity and inclusion council. In response to addressing disparities in health and healthcare and improving quality and patient safety in diverse populations, Northwell Health enhanced the accurate collection and use of race, ethnicity, and preferred language data as part of the American Association Equity of Care Pledge. Leaders like Michael Dowling and companies like Northwell Health are effective, and transparent, harnessing the power of disruption to create irreversible, sustainable change. Second, and let's be very clear, where we're talking about responding to America's racial reckoning, the underappreciation of, the undervaluing, the unnecessary taxing of Black and brown people is more than a Black, brown, and Latinx conversation. Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders are the fastest growing racial group in the United States, according to the 2010 census. And by 2060, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders are expected to increase over 4 times as rapidly as the total US population and grow to more than 47 million. Yet each racial group is scrambling for a piece of the corporate pie, and we find ourselves in a zero-sum game, or at least it seems. For the students in the room, a zero-sum game is a situation, especially a competitive one, in which there is no net gain among the participants. If one gains, it means others must lose an equivalent amount. So for example, if the only way you were to gain $1,000 is to deprive someone else of $1,000, you, my friends, are in a zero-sum game. But here's the uncomfortable truth. People of color are in a zero-sum game, fighting the model minority myth, distancing wherever possible from Blackness to get ahead, facing division, which is inherent to capitalism. It's no surprise employment and job opportunity pits us against each other. Poverty is rampant among all communities of color, so the need for work, even low-paying, can spark jealousy and anger rather than protest around the same struggle. My purpose for sharing this uncomfortable truth is simple. Let's stop playing and supporting this zero-sum game. If you are in the room, the virtual room, on the board, or invited to an inner circle where decisions are made, make sure you are not the last person of color to do so. The late Bernard Tyson, who was chairman and CEO of Kaiser Permanente, was named a top 100 honoree in 2017. At the gala, he was talking with his father about the disparate treatment of Black people in this country. He said, "Dad, you see all this? I have problems just like everybody else." He went on to say, "My father pondered that for a couple of seconds, and he said, 'Son, this is true, but the difference is people like you can take your problems to places like this.'" Bernard was a perfect example of a positive, powerful, impactful, walking disruptor because of the rooms, places, and spaces he entered and changed along the way. Monday marks 1 year since we lost him. If we look at the most innovative, disruptive, and prosperous urban centers in the world, New York, Dubai, London, and Singapore, they all have one thing in common. They are all international melting pots with an increase in the level of innovation. Further, and it's important to note, the business case for diversity is about more than gender, race, ethnicity. It is also about employees with diverse religious and political beliefs, education, socioeconomic backgrounds, sexual orientation, cultures, and even disabilities. Companies are discovering that by supporting and promoting a diverse and inclusive workplace, they are gaining benefits that go beyond optics. And speaking of going beyond the optics, I would be remiss if I did not congratulate TIAA Chief Inclusion and Diversity Officer, Corey Pauling, Corey is one of North America's most influential D&I leaders, as recognized by Hive Learning, located in London. Congratulations, Corey. There is no leader more deserving. Now, to my third and final point, my hope for future generations. In 2030, my son will be 14 and my daughter will be 17. I want them to see the tangible results of accelerated progress toward gender equality and race relations. I want each of them to know, Mommy planted trees she would never sit under. So let's start with systemic racism and social injustice. The murders of Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, Eric Gardner, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, Elijah McClain, George Floyd, and countless others snatched the Band-Aid off of the festering sore of racism in this country. That sore of oozing, smelling, and playing on repeat in the 24-hour news cycle is a direct result of unchecked racism. Unchecked racism will not be solved overnight. For real change, the business community and U.S. policymakers will have to work together to address racial inequality. During a CNBC interview in June 2020, while addressing the issues around George Floyd's murder, Randall Stevenson, executive chairman and board of AT&T, a Fortune 8 company, and also ranked #1 on our top 50 list in 2019, said, large companies are adept at affecting change in Washington if it's a priority. We are dealing with an issue that is a priority for business. We have a moral imperative, but free markets do not work in an environment where a large class of our people are perceiving and experiencing injustice. And civil unrest is not exactly conducive to a functioning free market economy. He went on and called to action leaders like him to use their muscle and influence to affect policy change. He concluded that interview by stating that regarding profiling and policing, if he were to use those types of policies at AT&T, he would be rightly terminated, fired, and probably sued. But the systems in place allow this treatment and condones it every single day. That people are treated one way in offices and on campuses and then are subjected to the exact opposite when they get in their cars and drive away. That is truth-telling. That is leadership accountability. Randall Stevenson is a corporate ally. In corporate America, most diversity efforts fail because they are similar in one way, that almost all white male leadership teams paternalistically decide to do diversity, equity, and inclusion, except on their terms. There are no repercussions for failure and to be withdrawn at any time at their sole discretion. It's discretionary. It is not business imperative. It's like a car dealership deciding to have a sale on a fleet of 2005 Pontiac Aztecs, which were suddenly discovered in Newark Airport long-term parking lot queue. It makes no sense and no one cares. And I got to give credit to my founder and chairman, Luke Visconti, for that. To be a successful leadership and to have successful outcomes, leadership must take to heart that the absence of a negative is not a positive. And after all that has been done for white men, everyone who is not a white man is going to want to understand what's in it for them in their community. If you're thinking that your company has not done anything special for white men, please pick up a book on the diversity recommendations list. Do yourself and us a favor and stop talking about diversity until you are slightly competent to do so. For example, Thought Exchange CEO Dave McLeod and I have had several candid conversations, which were peer-to-peer conversations. The intentional and genuine professional relationship that we are building is shifting the atmosphere in most directions. Now, let's look at gender equality. Gender equality is not only a fundamental human right, but a necessary foundation for a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world. Or as Michelle Obama put it best, no country can ever truly flourish if it stifles the potential of its women and deprives itself the contribution of half its citizens. In the US, women are earning more master's, bachelor's, and PhDs than men, but that fabulousness is grossly underrepresented in leadership and in long-term decision-making conversations. Around the world, there has been some progress over the last decades. More girls are going to school. Few girls are forced into early marriage. More women are serving in parliament in positions of leadership. and laws are being reformed to advance gender equality. Then a global pandemic hit, referred to by my older family members as the COVID. Across every sphere, from health to economy, security to social protection, the impacts of COVID-19 are exacerbated for women and girls simply by virtue of their gender. A shocking 865,000 women dropped out of the workforce in September 2020 alone. Across every sphere, from health to economy, the global crisis has made starkly visible the fact that the world's formal economies and the maintenance of our daily lives are built on the invisible and unpaid labor of women and girls. While there is no one-size-fits-all response, research and evidence show that no matter the crises, people who are putting women and girls at the center of economies will fundamentally drive better and more sustainable development outcomes for all. Everything we do during and after the COVID-19 crisis must aim to build more equal, inclusive, and sustainable economies and societies. This is perhaps the clearest lesson emerging from the pandemic. This includes gender-responsive economic and social policies and placing women's economic lives at the heart of the pandemic response and recovery plans. And when I say women, I'm talking about all women, folks. I'm not just talking about white women, all women. Bottom line, let's all harness the power of disruption to create irreversible, sustainable change. Remember, signs of success are not success. Keep on measuring, reporting, improving, and activating a culture of transparency. Be an ally to others in this fight for equality. Own your power and walk in it proudly. Now, I'd like to turn the program over to Dr. Vanessa Weaver, CEO of Alignment Strategies and President of DITV and partner of INROADS in creating this event. Dr. Weaver will facilitate two fishbowl conversations with senior executives exploring innovative ways organizations disrupt systemic racism. Dr. Weaver.